Here's a number that's going to sound completely wrong. When you pull up to a gas station and fill your tank, the owner of that station makes almost nothing from the gas you just bought. Sometimes it's less than 15 cents on every single gallon. So how does a gas station owner afford that huge piece of land, that lit-up sign you can see from a mile away, all those employees, and still turn a profit? The answer is one of the strangest business models in America. It's a business where the thing you sell the most of makes you the least money. And the stuff you barely think about, a fountain drink, a bag of chips, a cup of coffee, that's where the real profit is hiding. Today, we're breaking down the entire economics of owning a gas station. The land, the licenses, the hidden costs, the razor-thin margins, and the one trick that separates the stations that survive from the ones that quietly close down. Let's get into it. Let's follow a guy named Jake. Jake is 34. He's been driving past the same empty lot off the interstate exit for years, and every time he passes it, he sees a line of cars at the gas station right next to it. Cars pulling in, cars pulling out, all day long. So Jake thinks, this looks easy. People will always need gas. I'll build a station here, and the money will just roll in. He pictures himself watching cars line up at his pumps, watching the register fill up automatically. That's the dream almost every new gas station owner starts with. Here's what actually happens. Because to understand this business, you can't think of it as a shop that sells gasoline. You have to think of it as a business secretly built on three completely different income streams stacked on top of each other. And if Jake only understands one of them, he's going to lose money, even with his pumps running 24 hours a day. Let's break those three streams down, one at a time. The fuel trap. Why selling gas barely pays? Let's start with the obvious one, gasoline. Jake assumes that if a gallon of gas sells for $3.50 and it costs the company $3.20 to refine and deliver, then he, the station owner, pockets the difference. Simple, right? Wrong. Here's what actually happens to that $3.50. A big chunk of it, often 15 to 20%, is federal and state fuel taxes. Another large piece goes straight to the oil company or fuel distributor that supplies the gasoline. What's left over for Jake, the guy who owns the pumps, the land, and pays the staff, is what's called the retail margin. And that margin is small. On average, a gas station owner in the US makes somewhere between 10 and 20 cents of profit per gallon. On a good day, in a good market, maybe 30 cents. Let that sink in. Jake could fill up an entire SUV, 20 gallons, and make less profit than what a customer just spent on a single energy drink inside his own store. Now you might think, fine, the margin is small, but if you sell a huge volume of gas, it adds up. And that's true. That's literally the only way this side of the business works. It's a volume game. A gas station doesn't make money because gasoline is profitable. It makes money because gasoline sells in massive, predictable amounts every single day, all year round. Let's run the numbers on Jake's station. Say Jake sells 4,000 gallons of gas a day, a fairly typical, busy suburban station. At a margin of 15 cents a gallon, that's $600 a day from fuel. Over a month, that's around $18,000. Sounds decent, right? But that $18,000 has to cover everything. Staff wages, electricity, land lease or mortgage payments, pump maintenance, insurance, credit card processing fees, which are a real cost most people forget about, losses from shrinkage and measurement error, compliance and inspection costs. By the time all of that is subtracted, Jake's profit from fuel alone might barely break even. Some months, it might not cover the bills at all. And here's the part that really scares new owners. Jake doesn't control the price of gas. The market sets it minute by minute, sometimes changing twice a day. If crude oil prices spike because of some crisis overseas, the price at the pump jumps, but Jake's margin per gallon often stays exactly the same, or shrinks, because customers get angrier and drive less, or shop around more aggressively for the cheapest station nearby. So, picture this. Gas prices jump 20% almost overnight. Customers get upset, some cut back on driving, some drive an extra mile to save a few cents at a competitor. Sales volume drops. But Jake's fixed costs, rent, payroll, electricity, don't drop one bit. He's squeezed from both sides. Prices go up, but his cut doesn't grow with them. Volume goes down, and his cut shrinks even more. This is the fuel trap. Gasoline is what brings customers in, because everyone needs it eventually, but it's almost never what makes an owner rich. So if gas barely pays the bills, where's the real money coming from? That's stream number 2. And this is where it actually gets interesting. The convenience store economy, the real moneymaker. Here's a secret every successful gas station owner learns, usually the hard way. The pump's real job isn't to sell gasoline. Its real job is to get a car to stop moving for 5 minutes. Once that car stops and the driver walks inside to pay, grab a coffee, or use the restroom, that's when the real business begins. Look at what's sitting right behind almost every set of pumps in America. A convenience store. Fountain drinks, snacks, coffee, cigarettes, lottery tickets, sometimes a hot food counter, or even a Subway or a Dunkin' counter built right in. Here's why this matters so much. While gasoline gives Jake maybe 15 cents of profit per gallon, a fountain soda or a bag of chips can carry a profit margin of 50 to 70% of the price he sells it for. A cup of coffee that costs him 30 cents to make might sell for $2.50. Let's put a real number on it. Say Jake's store sells 300 items a day. Drinks, snacks, coffee, cigarettes, at an average profit of $1.20 per item. That's $360 a day. Just from small purchases people barely think twice about. Now compare that to fuel. Jake needed to sell 4,000 gallons of gas just to clear $600. But his little store, using a fraction of the space, is pulling in serious money from items that took seconds to ring up. This is exactly why, across the US, you'll notice something if you pay attention. The convenience store keeps getting bigger, and the gas pumps almost feel like an afterthought out front. Some of the biggest names in this industry, think Wawa, Quick Trip, Buc-ee's, Sheetz, are technically gas stations, but they make an enormous share of their profit from made-to-order food, coffee, and snacks, not from the pumps at all. Buc-ee's in particular is famous for having gas stations the size of a small supermarket, and industry insiders will tell you the fuel is basically there to get you in the parking lot. There's a phrase people in this industry actually use. Fuel is the anchor, the store is the engine. Gas pulls people in, because everyone eventually needs it. But the store is what actually pays Jake's bills and builds his real profit. This changes everything about how a smart owner should run their station. Jake shouldn't be asking, how do I sell more gas? He should be asking, how do I get every person who stops for gas to spend 5 more minutes and $5 more inside my store? That's why you'll see stations experimenting with rewards apps that give you points for buying snacks and coffee, not just gas. Clean, bright, well-lit stores that feel safe to walk into late at night. Bundled deals. Free coffee if you fill up more than $30 of gas. Partnerships with national food brands to pull people inside. Every single one of these is designed to squeeze more value out of the same 5-minute stop. But here's the twist, and it's where a lot of new owners like Jake go completely wrong. They think, if the store is this profitable, let me just make it bigger and cram in more products. That's not automatically true. Because now we get to stream number 3, the one almost nobody talks about, but the one that quietly decides whether Jake's whole business survives or collapses. The silent killer, fixed costs and hidden risk. Let's talk about what it actually costs Jake just to open the doors, before he sold a single gallon of gas or a single candy bar. First, land. A gas station needs a big visible lot, usually right off a highway exit or a busy intersection with enough space for cars to pull in, queue at the pumps, and pull back out safely. That land is expensive. Depending on the location, buying a well-positioned lot can easily run into the millions of dollars. And even leasing it means a fixed monthly payment whether Jake sells a lot of gas that month or barely any. Second, the underground storage tanks and pump equipment. Gasoline isn't stored in a simple barrel out back. It requires specially engineered underground tanks, leak detection systems, fire suppression equipment, and pumps that need regular certification. Installing a full set of tanks and pumps can easily run several $100,000, and it all has to be maintained and eventually replaced. Third, licensing and permits. Jake can't just decide to sell gas. He needs a supply agreement with a fuel distributor or brand, EPA, approval for those underground tanks, a state fire marshal inspection, and permits from his local zoning board. This process alone can take the better part of a year and comes with its own set of fees. Fourth, staff. Someone has to run the registers, restock the store, handle cash and card transactions, and keep the place secure, usually across multiple shifts, because most stations are open close to 24 hours a day. Here's the part that really catches new owners off guard. Almost all of these costs are fixed. They don't care whether Jake sells 2,000 gallons a day or 8,000 gallons a day. The lease is the same. The payroll is mostly the same. The loan payment on his equipment is exactly the same. This means Jake's station has what's called a break-even point, a minimum amount of gas and store sales he must hit every single day just to cover his costs before he earns a single dollar of actual profit. If a new competitor opens across the street, if the highway department reroutes traffic during a construction project, if a recession makes people drive less, Jake's sales can drop below that break-even line, and suddenly he's paying money out of his own pocket just to keep the lights on. There's one more hidden risk almost nobody thinks about: shrinkage and measurement loss. Fuel expands and contracts slightly with temperature, and small amounts are lost to evaporation and metering error. Across tens of thousands of gallons a month, that adds up to real money. Money Jake paid for but never actually got to sell. Then there's the risk nobody wants to talk about: environmental liability. If one of those underground tanks ever leaks, even slightly, the EPA cleanup costs can run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes enough to bankrupt a small independent owner. This is exactly why gas station insurance is so expensive, and why a lot of owners quietly worry about the one thing they can't see sitting right under their feet. So now Jake's business looks like this: thin margins on gas, a genuinely profitable side business in the convenience store, and a mountain of fixed costs and hidden risks sitting underneath both, silently deciding whether the whole thing survives. This is exactly why gas stations have one of the highest ownership turnover rates of any small business in America. People buy in expecting a cash machine. They discover a business that demands constant, careful management of volume, cost, and risk, with very little room for error. But there's one more twist reshaping this entire industry, right now, in real time. The elephant in the room: electric vehicles. Let's fast forward Jake's story by 10 years. Electric vehicles are becoming more common on American roads every year. And on the surface, that looks like terrible news for anyone who owns a gas station. More cars running on batteries means fewer people stopping at Jake's pumps, right? In the long run, yes. This is a real, serious shift. But here's what's interesting. It's happening slower than most people assume, and smart owners are already adapting in a genuinely clever way. Charging an EV isn't like filling a tank in 3 minutes. Even with a fast charger, it can take 20 minutes to over an hour. And remember what we learned earlier. The longer a customer is stuck at your location, the more money they spend in your store. So some gas station owners are starting to think, what if I install EV fast chargers alongside my pumps? Yes, my gasoline sales might slowly decline over the years. But now I've got customers sitting at my location for 30 minutes instead of 3, which means far more coffee, food, and snack purchases per visit. In other words, the smartest owners aren't fighting the shift to EVs. They're quietly repositioning the whole business. The pump was always just the excuse to get someone to stop. In an electric future, the charging stall becomes the new excuse. And honestly, it's an even better one because it keeps the customer around longer. That's the real lesson buried inside this entire business. A gas station was never really in the gasoline business. It was always in the convenience and captive attention business. Gas was just the reason people showed up. Let's go back to Jake, standing at that empty lot off the interstate, picturing his future gas station. Should he go for it? Here's the honest answer. This is not a lazy, passive investment where money just flows in because people need gas. It's a business that demands enormous upfront capital for land, tanks, pumps, and permits. Careful, ongoing management of a core product with wafer-thin margins. A genuine retail mindset to build a store people actually want to walk into. And a long-term eye on where the whole industry is heading, especially with EVs on the rise. If Jake treats it like, "I'm just here to sell gas," he's almost guaranteed to struggle, because gas alone barely covers the bills in most cases. But if Jake treats it like, "I'm running a small retail business that happens to have gas pumps out front," building a great store, keeping costs disciplined, picking a location with real traffic, and staying ready to adapt as vehicles change, then this can absolutely be a stable, long-term business. Not necessarily one that makes him rich overnight, but one that, run properly, can support a family and grow steadily for decades. That's the real economics of owning a gas station. It's not about gasoline. It's about location, volume, discipline, and everything you sell in those 5 minutes a customer is standing still. So next time you pull into a gas station, take a second look around. Notice the store. Notice the coffee counter. Notice how much thought went into getting you to stop there for those 5 minutes. Now you know the real business happening right in front of you. If you found this breakdown interesting and really enjoy our video, like and hit subscribe for more videos like this. See you in the next one.